If it just seems like your plans are failing this week, or you've been having a challenging couple of weeks when it comes to your goals, the things you want to accomplish, or trying to get some clarity in your vision, then this is the episode for you. Stay tuned as I put on the professional hat and take out a few coaching methods that I think will really help. You're listening to the Joshua Mentality. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Joshua Mentality. If you are joining me on this fantastic hump day, allow me to wish you a happy almost end of the week. We're almost there. And with that, I think it's a great segue into our weekly count. We are at 32. We're only about a few weeks away from the halfway mark. So hopefully you all are getting it in and making the best of 2021. Things are really starting to blossom a little bit. You don't tune into the Joshua Mentality for health and news updates, but I think it's appropriate to mention some of the seems like this big ship that COVID was. I say ship. Some of you might call it something else, but it seems like it's finally starting to turn slowly. We're not out of the woods yet, but it seems like we're finally, at least we can see the light. From far away, we can at least kind of see and envision what life after all this will be like. So I don't know how I ended up in that segue, but yes, I hope you're having a great week and I hope things are turning around for you. That's what it was. I want to draw that correlation. I hope things are turning around in your world as well, if they haven't already. If this is your first time kind of checking in and tapping in with us, I want to give you a special welcome. And as always, kind of just shed some light on what this podcast is about. This podcast is really geared towards reminding all of the listeners how awesome, how incredible, how beautifully and wonderfully made you are. And more importantly than that, really pushing you towards your destiny, your life purpose, just maximizing what I believe to be the success that you are destined for, that your life was destined for. So we take a few different approaches to that. Oftentimes it's really through conversation, though. That's how I like to keep this format. So if you're a first-time listener, welcome. And I hope you get some value out of this the same way a lot of the returning listeners seem to be getting some value out of it. At least I hope that's the case, because you're coming back to listen, time and time again. With that, I think that's a great time to shift into this week's conversation. And this week's conversation is really heavily on the practical side. I will say that from the beginning. We're going to get into just some practical tips, because I got a feeling my coaching senses are tingling, and I get the feeling that there's a lot of people out there who you're in kind of that crux of your plans, your goal, the things you were going out to accomplish this year, or the dreams that you finally decide to jump out and go after. And I feel like I just sense that a lot of people are starting to hit that wall. Number one, I want you to know that that's normal. That's totally fine. But I also want to give you some ways that you can kind of work your way through that. So we're going to get into some practical stuff tonight or tonight. Why did I say tonight? We're going to get into some practical stuff today. And I want to, at the end, I'm going to do something a little, just stay tuned. Stay tuned to the end. I'm going to walk you through something that I think is pretty cool. But first, talking about coaching, for those of you who do not know, that is my trade. That is what I do kind of on the business side of life. I am an organizational psychologist by title, and that simply points to the focus and concentration on coaching and consulting. In my life, there's 4 things that I've done continuously over the past decade. It is speak, coach, train, and consult. Those are the 4 areas that I discovered. Remember we talked about discovery? I discovered that those are things that I'm pretty good at. And over the last decade, I've just been working to develop those skill sets. And to this day, I still continuously work to develop those skill sets. A lot of my focus is in strategy. And so why am I telling you all of this? This podcast isn't about me, but I share that with you because I want you all to know. And please hear me when I say this. None of the challenges that I've overcome, the accomplishments that I've been able to reach in my life, none of them came just by my own doing. At every season of my life I can think of that kind of made its way through that threshold and ended up being something successful, there was always a person or people in that season who served in my life as mentor, coach, helping me get there. And I bring that up because I want you all to know and to hear me when I say this. We all need a coach. And really, when you think about it, there's only 3 things that would prevent us from seeking out or believing that we need a coach. The first is knowledge, not knowing that we indeed need a coach. The second is pride, believing that we don't need one. And the third is none other than choices. It's hard to know who do you seek out, right? Like who's the right person to select for your coach. So let me go through those one more time. The first one, knowledge, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. If you're someone that didn't know you need a coach, well, now you know. So I'm here to tell you, you need a coach in whatever thing you're serious about in your life. Not just for the miscellaneous things. You don't need a coach to tell you to, fix your bed in the morning. I'm talking about the serious things. Fixing your bed is serious, but hopefully you don't need a coach for that. Things like the second one, pride, though, that is something that I probably see the most. And it's people who don't believe they need a coach because they can figure it out. They don't need to invest into that kind of solution. But let me tell you, when you think about some of the most accomplished professionals that we've seen in our time, whether it be sports, whether it be business, LeBron James is someone that comes to mind, regardless of how you feel about the guy. He's been at the top of his industry since I was, high school? He's for a long time. And the point is, even being at that height, having the God-given talent that he has, he still has a coach. Or coaches, I should say. Coaches over his nutrition, his health, his body, his mind. And I've met similar accomplished professionals in business who have the same thing. They have coaches, they have mentors. Only pride would tell us that we have it all figured out, that we don't need anyone else that may have more of an expertise, or because this is the real benefit and this is the reason or purpose of a coach, and that's to bring out the best in you. So not only might they be the expert that you need, they might be the person that can bring out a new level in you. So don't let pride stop you from getting that or from experiencing that. And choices, that's probably, I would say, the hardest one. It is you have to make sure you choose the right coach, because there are a lot of quote unquote imposters or people who are not living what they're coaching. So that's a whole nother subject. So I'm not going to get into that. I just wanted you to know what some of the common barriers are that stops us from seeking out a coach. And I want you to know, more importantly, to wrap that whole thing up in a bow, we need coaching. It's important. We need a coach. So here's what I want to do. Since this is something that's in my kind of area of quote unquote expertise, I only put quotes on that because I don't believe anyone's 100% an expert, but we're all just operating in our strength. So let's put it that way. This is something that's in my strength zone. And I thought it'd be really cool tonight to take you through what it's like to have a session with a coach. And it's really very simple, because any great coach will tell you the job of a coach is to come into the coaching relationship believing that the client already has all the answers. Our job is just to help them uncover those answers and apply strategy, the best strategy possible to them. but all those answers are already inside of them. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of take you through that. But before I do that, I want to tell you why. The reason why is because I myself, even to this day, I am seeking out constantly coaching opportunities for people to coach me, not opportunities for me to coach others, but coaching opportunities for me to receive coaching. And I'm going to share with you some of the best questions that I've been asked while being coached. In those moments when I've gotten into a rut, or I wasn't thinking straight, or I needed some guidance, I took some time to put together just kind of a compilation of all of what I think are some of the best questions. Not all of them, I guess, but some of the best ones. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to get in the forefront, in that frontal lobe, the forefront of your mind. Any challenge that you've been currently having, or thing that you've been trying to, goal that you've been trying to accomplish. And it could be business, it could be school, it could be personal, character, like I said earlier. It could be leadership, it could be whatever. I want you to put that in the forefront of your mind. And if you are not in the car driving, or if you have an opportunity to take out a piece of paper, I think this would definitely be one of the episodes that you want to write your answers to some of these questions I'm about to get into. I think it will help you, but first I want to also give you a disclaimer when it comes to coaching. Before we jump into this kind of 5-minute session, I want you to know, here's the disclaimer. Your coaching experience is only as good as your engagement and honesty. All right? So, these questions can be questions from God, and it won't matter if you're not honest with them, or if you're not engaging them to really search and to not just stop at, oh, I don't know, or whatever. I really want you to take this serious, because these are questions that have really kind of stopped me in the moment. And it made me really think and change the way I do some things. And quite honestly, these are some of the questions that I still to this day struggle with. But that's why I think they're so good, because you have to keep kind of chewing on them until you get to that consistency. Like this helps create a barometer in your life, like a metric that you can keep going back to. So without further ado, I don't want to keep hyping it up. I want to get into these. So here's some questions, or the top questions I've been asked in relation to the goals and the things that I've wanted to accomplish at the most, timely kind of moment in my life. And so I want you to take whatever that goal, that challenge is in your life that you're having. Maybe you're having it this week. And I want you to apply, or to walk through this framework with me. All right? Are we ready? Here we go. The first one is a very simple one, and it's in relation to your goal. What do you want? What is it that you really want? What do you want? Is it something that's based on or centered around you? Is it something that, if you accomplished, would benefit many others? Is it a dream? What is it? And what do you want? The second question, I'm giving you some time to think through and write these down if you're writing them. The second question is, what kind of help do you need to reach and exceed that goal? Now, these two questions were actually questions that were asked of me recently from a coach of mine. I have been in the middle of a transition from working for an organization to being full-time in my business. And when this question was asked of me, you would have thought that it was the first time I had been asked this, because I just went totally blank. It was like all this time I dreamed and thought about all this stuff and all the possibilities. And then someone asked you, what do you want? And it's like, wait a minute, what do I want? And so the way I broke it down, and maybe this will help you, I really thought about, well, what is valuable to me about this venture? And when I think about it that way, what do I want? I wanted to carry on a legacy. The business was named after my grandmother, and there's a personal. It's personal. There's an attachment there, and that's what kind of drives me to want to accomplish getting this off the ground and getting this organizational psychology practice off the ground, because it's tied to her name, and my grandmother meant so much to me. So that I wanted that legacy to be built. Number two, I wanted some freedom. I want some freedom in being able to focus just completely on my business, which means I also want to be able to replace the income that I'm making currently with the organization I've had the privilege of working with. And that's, you see how you kind of break that down? And then the second part, when we talked about what kind of help do I need to reach and exceed? Well, I know I needed help in being more consistent in my scheduling. I needed help in time management and execution, making sure that I'm measuring everything. That was something that a coach told me, measure everything. And I won't go any further, but those are some examples. What do you want? And what kind of help do you need to reach and exceed that goal? Maybe your goal is not business, but you can apply these same examples I'm giving you to whatever your goal is. All right? The second question is more about the now, where you are currently. And so this question is, what's working well for you at this moment right now? What's working well for you? Now, if this one's a difficult one for you, I'll give you another example. When I thought about this question in relation to my business, I'm going to keep using that as an example. I think that's a good example to use. I thought about all of the strengths and skill sets I've discovered over my time working in my current organization, and how I've kind of gotten to a comfort zone, not in a bad way, but in a good way, like knowing what my strengths are and knowing exactly what I need to focus on developing. So I would say that's what's working well for me. Like, I know the strengths and the occupation per se that I'm working in is one that is meant for me, that is connected to my life purpose. And that, to me, works really well. So for you, what's working well for you right now? What are some of the things that are kind of in your immediate influence, like your circle of influence that you can use to build momentum? For me, it's my strengths. For you, it might be a relationship or relationships with an S that you have that you can build momentum from. What's working? Maybe you've already put together a good plan that's detailed. I don't know. I'm just throwing some stuff out there. But this question of what's working, I want you to answer that in relation to that goal, that challenge. What is working well? Because everything is not tarnished. It never is. We just got on the wrong pair of glasses. So even if you feel like everything right now for you is upside down, nothing is going the way you want it to, there is something that's going well. And it can be used to gain momentum towards accomplishing that goal or overcoming that challenge. All right? Let's keep moving through these. The next one is options. What would you like to be different? And this one is specifically for those of you who are having some challenges. What would you like to be different? Number one, within those things or that thing that you would like to be different, what could you change? What's in your circle of influence? For me, actually, before I get into some examples, I want to keep going through these because there's some good ones in here. And again, these are questions that I've been asked during my coaching sessions that I thought had a really big impact on me and my journey towards accomplishing goals and overcoming challenges. So what could you change? What's in your immediate circle of influence? And when it comes to that change that you could make because it's in your circle of influence, here's the next question. What is the biggest barrier to choosing that option? In other words, like, if you all are probably like me, you know what you need to do, but what's the barrier that's stopping you from getting there? Is it something as simple as getting up early? Is it something as simple as being consistent in your time schedule? I know for me, I'm mentioning things for me that have been barriers that have stopped me from doing what I can control. Some of the challenges have been time-wise, and I feel like I don't have enough time to focus on all the things I want to focus on. But yet I have 4 hours in the morning that I'm totally just discarding or not using well, not stewarding well. So, what are the biggest barriers for you? And then how might you change yourself to modify this situation? What do you need to change? What do you need to change to overcome that barrier and modify this situation? And that will bring to the last question in this section, which is, what solutions can you apply? And there are tons of solutions. Some are in the form of human beings. Some are in the form of technology. And there's all kinds of apps and all kinds of things and solutions that you can use to help you modify behavior. There are networks and groups of people that you can get yourself involved with that can help you modify behavior. One of the things I've done this year and made a decision to do is to get out more and to get involved in thriving networks. I'm involved in a chamber now that I would say that's one of the best decisions I made this year, because the network is just a synergy when I get with those people, and it makes me want to modify my behavior because I'm around other successful people. What's that for you? What does that look like for you? And then we wrap this thing up with some specifics. Those who know me, I'm not the detailed guy, but I've learned that if you go through any session and you don't come out with some specifics, time-based things, then you just might as well not gone through that session. So this last portion it talks about making this more specific and time-bound. So what will you do to ensure that this change happens? And I want you to think specifically. I want you to think down to the days and the hours of what will you do. And just start with one. If you're like me, you don't need to try to go from 0 to 60. If you're like me, you need to go from 0 to 1. Okay? What's the next thing you need to do to ensure that change happens? And number 2, what support will you need? What support will you need? I would suggest, per this conversation, a good source of support may be a coach. And here's the thing, coaching can come in various ways. If you're someone that says, Joshua, I can't afford a coach. Well, I would counter that and say, well, how much money have you spent at your last outing eating? If you spent anything around $10 to $16, you can afford a coach. Your coach will just be in the form of a book. Right? Like, that's what your coach will be. And that's what my coach has been in certain seasons of my life. I've had to pick up a book and learn that way because I couldn't pay someone the proper value to do it in person. So these are just some questions that I think have been very important. I'll stop there as we've been going kind of long. So I'll stop there. And I want you to really just analyze these questions in your life, because your goals are right there on the other side of some of these challenges you're having. And today I want to just take some time to take you through a simple coaching session so that you can overcome some of these challenges you might be experiencing in your life currently and get over to that success that your life was meant for. All right. So I hope you found this to be valuable. We went kind of quick through some of these, but I wanted to do kind of a rapid fire coaching session with you just so you get an idea of what that would be like, because that's really what it's about. If you sit down with a great coach, you're going to be doing most of the talking, because the belief is that you have the answers. Our job as coaches is to help bring those out of you and apply strategy to them and then hold you accountable. All right. So consider this my sign off. And I hope that, again, that you got some value out of this. If so, make sure you go like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think about the show and let others know what you're getting out of it. All right. Other than that, I will see you next week. Same time, same place. Reminding you that success is your destiny.